There you go, we're live. Hi everyone. Happy to welcome Anna Britton. Do you want to start us off with an intro for you and your books?
Yeah, I'd love you. Firstly, thank you so much for having me. It's really nice, even though I can't see everyone, it's really nice to be here with you. My name's Anna Britton, and oh, sorry, my dog's just come to visit. I'll try and, oh no, I can't show you, but he is here. He is my co-writer, Odie, so he's with me whenever I'm writing. I'm the author of the Martin and Stern series. I live on the Isle of Wight, where I work as a freelance editor alongside writing as much as I can. And I love walking on the island and kayaking along the coastline and up rivers and stuff, and do lots and lots of reading as much as I can. I've written for about 10 years, but my debut novel, Shot in the Dark, only came out last year. So I spent a lot of time getting used to writing, learning how to do it. I wrote young adult novels first. I wrote a bit of sci-fi and romance, and then sort of something just seemed to click when I switched to crime, which was really lovely. But I faced quite a lot of rejection, which I'm really happy to chat about if anyone wants me to, before I got published. But I'm really glad I stuck at it because it's been such a lovely experience having the books published. Close to the Edge, which is the other one, published last week, and they're both part of the Martin and Stern series. Close to the Edge follows on from Shot in the Dark. They're police procedurals set in the New Forest in Southampton, which is just across the water from me. And I really love writing them. I'm writing book 3 now, and it's got 2 female detectives at the heart of it, and they're so different, and I think they're both brilliant. It's got lots of mixed media, so text messages and emails and reports and phone calls, and my hope is with those that it helps people sort of solve the mystery alongside the detectives and feel like they're kind of part of it. And I love writing them. It's sort of almost like putting together a big puzzle, which is really fun for me. And I really love sort of delving into mental health and like sort of slightly more serious issues alongside the crime as well. But yeah, I think, is that everything you need to know?
Yeah, that's brilliant. I looked up the reminder, so it was Laura who often watches the chats, and she said she's hoping to watch, but she's having a bit of a nightmare journey home from work.
Oh,
She read the first book on Pigeonhole.
yes.
And loved it apparently, and has book 2 on order.
Ah, that's brilliant. Pigeonholes, if anyone's not heard of it, it's really cool. They release like a section of the book each day and everyone reads it, but you can all like comment and kind of reply to each other's thoughts and everything, which was really cool.
I was going to talk about the mixed media in this because it's why I bought my copy with me. I quite like how it's actually formatted in the book, isn't it? It's like text messages and like actual emails and things, and that's quite an interview. Is like it breaks up the story as well.
There's a lot of people talk to me about how they found it easier to read more than they thought they would, because you'd read a chapter and then you go, oh, there's only a text next. Oh, there's only a little email, and you kind of 10 pages later you're like, oh, okay, I've read another whole section. But yeah, no, I love the mixed media thing, and it's all told from one detective's point of view, but the mixed media lets me tell it from other people as well and sort of get them involved. So yeah, really fun to do that.
It is, it's really good. And I think it's kind of something that, like, we got things like The Appeal, didn't we, from Janice Hallett, that kind of started that off, and now we're sort of seeing it a little bit more in books. And I think it's a really cool way of like sort of telling stories.
I love how it involves readers. So like when I was reading The Appeal, I kept being really nerdy and looking at all the email addresses and being like, oh, can I figure out something from this, and can I do, and in the end I don't think I had anything to do with that, but but I had a lovely time reading it. And I think I love that sort of, when you publish a book, your part as an author is almost like done, but I love that aspect of it kind of helps people feel very involved in what's happening as the story goes along. They're sort of, people can be bystanders if they want and sort of sit back and enjoy the story. But I really like that there's an element of like, if they want to, like, I know some people with book one, I think Tandem did a read along, and lots of them had like post-it notes and sort of notes and everything, and we're kind of like keeping track of things. And I like that there's that element that you could involve yourself that much if you want to.
So Sarah, who's watching, said she's read both books and they're brilliant.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. That's so kind.
Book 3.
Pardon?
She said she can't wait for book 3.
Oh, thank you. I'm working on it. I'm redrafting it. I've written a first draft and I'm redrafting now. And I think I don't think Canelo will mind me saying this, but I think the plan is for it to be August next year. But we'll see.
That's a good time. So you said you were writing for 10 years before these ones came out. What made you swap from young adult to crime? Because didn't you say you started writing kind of young adult?
Yeah, I did. So I actually managed. I wrote, I think, 3 young adult books, and I tried to get an agent with all of them. And on the 3rd one, I did, and it was. I think I don't know if there's any writers out there, but I think when you haven't got an agent, the goal is to get an agent, and it feels like that is everything. And everyone always says to you, be really careful before you sign with an agent, and do all your research and I've that's all really good advice, but really hard to take when what you want, it really desperately is an agent. So I signed with this agent who is a lovely person, but almost immediately there were a lot of sort of flashing warning lights that I wasn't paying any attention to. So it became very clear quite quickly that we had really different vision for the books, and kind of, I really wanted to write adult books as well. She really didn't really want me to do that. And there were just a lot of other things that kind of weren't sitting right, but I was kind of ignoring them because I had an agent now. And you got an agent, then you get a publisher. And I just really wanted to be on that stepping stone. And then really, unfortunately, about a year afterwards, she said, I think actually this isn't working. It's time to part ways. And I was so gutted. But almost immediately off the back of it, I had been writing some crime at that point. And I almost immediately launched into writing Shot in the Dark, and felt so excited about it, and almost like released from this kind of almost like, not a prison, but like this kind of cage that I put myself in with having this agent. I had to perform in a certain way and I had to write these certain books. So then I queried Shot in the Dark and got my agent Saskia at the Kate Nash Literary Agency. And the thing I would say is that it's been a completely different experience. So I don't think I ever made a conscious decision to switch from young adult to crime. In an ideal world, I would write both, and I'd write a bit of romance and sci-fi and everything. But crime is sort of I just felt very excited about it, and the sort of scope of the stories you can tell, and kind of, that was kind of, that's a long answer to your question.
long answers are great. Don't worry about it. It's a long answer. You sort of described them as police procedurals.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a daunting thing to start off with? Because there are a lot of people who are very well versed now, aren't there, who are crime readers into police procedure. Did you use one of the police advisors that are around, or?
So my uncle was a police officer, his whole career basically. So I used him, I got most of the stuff right. So I didn't have to change any major plot points. I would say he helped me like with getting forms a bit more how they would be, and kind of like just like lots of little things. Like he talked about how when you go to have like a body examined, there's like really strange smells. So police officers will often have really strong mints because it like sort of cancels out your sense of smell somehow. And like lots of little things like that just really, I felt like they really enriched the story. So he's been amazing. So what I tend to do, he's already seen book 3, told me all the things I've done wrong. So I can then write it the right way now. But again, nothing massive. Like he's just sort of said, oh, tweak this, like this would happen, and so it's all really helpful. And I think it is quite intimidating because, like you say, there are really knowledgeable people and they really care about small details. But I think I sort of almost got to the point of like allowing myself like a little bit of a grace as a storyteller, and actually that I hope readers would allow as well. I know it's really annoying when something's really, really wrong, but I was like, actually, to the best of my ability, I've made this as accurate as possible. But actually what I'm doing is telling a fictional story. So if I've had to bend things a little bit and kind of twist things, actually that's okay because it's fiction, and hopefully my main aim is that people would enjoy it and have a lovely time while they're reading it. My secondary aim is making sure it's like super, super, super accurate. And the thing is, if it was really accurate, it'd be really boring because a lot of the time police officers are just doing paperwork. So so it would, yeah, it's got to have a license to be a story, I think.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, we try not to give spoilers away here, and I've started with book 2, which is probably not the right order to have gone in. Yeah. But I kind of like that it's a very different opening, isn't it? So we're starting with 2 police officers shot, and then the investigation is kind of into them. Like, I know there's other things that happen in it as well, but that's like one of the primary sort of storylines, isn't it? Like them kind of not being allowed to investigate their own shooting almost. And I thought that was quite unusual.
Well, and it was a bit of a barrier really as well. Because like one of the first things my uncle said is that they would not be allowed to touch the case. Like it is like anything they touch in a sense is like contaminated because they are so biased about what's happened. So it kind of, I kind of wrote it a lot about the shooting, and then my editor at the time, Sian, she said, you really need another case because they can't investigate their shooting effectively. Like a lot of it needs to happen off the page and be like emails from other people and whatever. So we need another case that's going to kind of actually be happening on the page. And so that's when we talked about the student that goes missing, and that Gabe, she's so desperate to be at the studio, at the station, that they kind of almost give her this case that they're like, right, fine, you can investigate this, but just stay away from the shooting. You can't do that. But yeah, I quite, and the limitations of they've just been shot, so physically they will struggle. Emotionally, they're gonna sort of struggle a bit. So yeah, I had a lot of fun writing it, but it did almost immediately create this sort of shackles that I had to keep myself within.
I think the other thing that's quite good about that though is that you don't shy away from them struggling physically. You know, there is this thing, isn't there? I think sometimes with like thrillers and stuff where people are like shot and then they just carry on. You know, wrap a bandage around it and then they're good. And it's actually no, there is going to be issues. They are going to have pain. There is going to be, and I think you represented that really well in it.
Oh, thank you. I had to I actually had to change where they got shot because my uncle talked to me, and a paramedic talked to me. I've got very useful friends, which is really helpful. They talked to me about how basically if you're shot anywhere below your clavicle, your lungs will collapse because of it's sort of the impact of the bullet, and kind of it just causes so much damage that you'll have lung collapse. So I had to shoot them a bit higher than I'd initially planned because like you said, I wanted them to be hurt and I wanted them to be struggling, but I wanted them to be capable to a certain degree. But thank you. It's that hard thing when someone, like, because I recovered from surgery last summer, and it's all you can think about. It's so annoying and it hurts all the time. But within a book, you can't say it too much, but you've got to kind of say it enough to make it real. So yeah, thank you. I'm glad that came across well.
It came across in the sort of as someone who's like broken bits of bones in arms and things as well. It's very true. They're sort of having to find, ways you can dress yourself and
yeah. And you have to wear slightly different clothes. And I think there's a bit where Gabe puts her seatbelt underneath her armpit rather than over her shoulder. And I broke my collarbone once, and I really vividly remember having to have my seatbelt in a really awkward position. And you have to find those workarounds, don't you? Particularly Gabe, because she's so determined to carry on. She's got to figure out how to work around this injury.
We've got a hello from Donna. Sarah wants to know how you keep track of your characters and locations.
Really badly. So initially, when I wrote a first draft, I'm just quite scatty, and they're a bit all over the place. And I kind of, at some points, I'll realise, oh gosh, they were at a station a minute ago, and then suddenly they're in the New Forest. Probably need to resolve that at some point. So yeah, my first drafts are messy. But then when I do a second draft, I tend to do a sort of spreadsheet of, this is who's in the scene, this is where they are, this is what they're wearing, this is kind of what they're doing, blah, blah, and kind of keep track that way. But yeah, initially I'm not great. And I always give them names that my editor then goes, oh, by the way, you've got someone with a really similar name in book one, and like kind of need to change that. And so yeah, basically I'm quite bad at that. And have to my brain's not big enough, so I just have to keep lots and lots of notes. And I've got a few people that read, like my husband and a couple of friends who read the books for me and are quite good at spotting things like that when I've made a bit of a mistake. So yeah.
Do you because you said you kind of cross the water from where they're set. Do you kind of go and visit like the locations that you're going to use for the story? I presume they're all real locations.
Some of them are, some of them aren't. So I tend to, if anyone's been killed somewhere, it's imaginary, because I always think it'd be a bit horrible to set it in someone's like nice house or something. So in the first book, the Dunlow Manor is made up, but I should share it somewhere sometime. I've got an aerial picture of the New Forest, and there's this like bit of forest, and there's just a weird square in the middle of grass. And I was like, oh, I'll put a house there. I'll use that for my purposes. So it's sort of a real location, but I've superimposed a manor there. And like things like in Close to the Edge, there's a point where a body is found, and it's kind of based loosely on a real place, but not fully. And yeah, like Southampton and the New Forest are just places I'm really, really familiar with. So I come across a lot. And then when I'm thinking specifically about something, so there's a scene at the end of Close to the Edge, which is at a hotel in Southampton, and really helpfully they had like a walkthrough of the hotel itself, so I did the little walkthrough and then based it all on that. So yeah, I use the internet quite a bit when I can't get across, but yeah, come across quite a lot anyway.
Cool. Sarah says that she's quite accident prone, so could empathise with her injuries.
Yeah, I'm not sure Gabe or Juliet are accident prone, but yeah, I know. Yeah, I very much. I've got like a weird bruise on my arm at the moment because where I've walked into a door or something. So yeah, I understand this.
Yeah, I think we can all sympathise, can't we?
Yeah.
Laura says she made it.
Hey, Laura.
We have discussed your travel woes, Laura. So the characters, I really like Gabe and Juliet as like characters. I think it's great to have kind of two strong women leading the way.
I I didn't realise that was unusual. When I was writing it, I had the idea for Gabe quite early on, and then Juliet cropped up, and I was like, oh yes, she's great. And it was only when, actually after I got an agent, I didn't really sell it to her as having two female people at the start. And then that was a major way that she kind of talked about it with publishers, and then my publisher definitely took that on. And it was only at that point that I was like, oh, are other people not massively doing that? So yeah, it wasn't an intentional move on my part, but I'm really, really happy to have these two really strong women sort of at the centre of it.
I think there are kind of some others as well, isn't there? There's like Alice, the police lady. I really liked her.
Yes, Alice is like fun. And I really love writing secondary characters that are kind of going to have their own story over the series. So Alice kind of develops and grows, and there's Maddie, who's their assistant, who will kind of change. And then I don't think you see her too much in Shot in the Dark, but there's Nicole, Paul's his like DS that he works with, and kind of I really like there's a lot of female characters in there that I sort of really love, and Angela, who is the superintendent as well. I just love having these sort of secondary characters that you can kind of dig your teeth into and have a bit of fun with.
I like the little bits of humour that you get from sort of people like Alice as well, that like lighten the mood. So I think there's a bit where she's like appreciating Gabe's boyfriend.
Yeah.
To work.
I think we all appreciate Ollie. Just to put that out there. he's lovely. But yeah, I feel like Gabe and Juliet are quite serious a lot of the time. Gabe less so, but Juliet definitely. So I think it is nice to have Alice sort of she's just a bit irreverent, isn't she? And like, just you can imagine she's sort of a bit banter, isn't she? And I like that sort of, and how she interacts with Gabe, how she interacts with Juliet, sort of all that interplay between them.
Laura says she thinks Gabe and Juliet complement each other well.
I hope so. I think so. I think I'm not a very intentional writer. I like to kind of see how things fall onto the page. But I think quite early on they sort of started to work really well together and kind of really complement each other, and particularly Juliet, because she's such a sort of cold, sort of bristly character. She really needed someone quite special and someone really competent that she'd be willing to work alongside. So it's really nice to sort of see how, like, Gabe would probably say that she's not as good at her job as Juliet is, and sort of looks up to her quite a lot, but actually she has strengths that Juliet doesn't have as well. So yeah,
I mean, Juliet is kind of also a little bit facing some quite tough home sort of scenarios, isn't she? And that must have been, I think, sort of a brave topic to address in the book, but also do quite sensitively.
Thank you. I think particularly like domestic abuse, and I think particularly when it doesn't take the form of like in that being a physical abusive situation, I think can be really hard for people to understand outside of it. And I think you'd assume that anyone who's sort of suffering under coercive control would be like a weak character and would sort of be easy to take advantage of. And I think one of the things I really want to show is that actually that can happen to anybody really, and kind of, unless you, like, red flags are very hard to spot early on when someone's hiding them. And I think particularly Juliet is, like, we'll find out more about her as the series goes on, but she, like, in my mind at least, is quite a reticent character. She isn't someone who would have like sort of had a huge amount of experience with men or trusting men. So then sort of it's easy, it would have been easy for her to make mistakes in that area, but then it doesn't mean that she's not an incredibly competent detective, and not an incredibly strong woman just because that's going on. So yeah, I'm thank you. I'm glad that it's sort of come across sensitively, and that's kind of I think it's something that's important to show when you can.
I really like Juliet anyway because I'm quite fond of a curmudgeonly, like grumpy person. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
So,
I think the person who gets the most love is Juliet. I think what I'm really glad is that people have seen her how I see her, which is it's just really lovely because I think she's a very difficult person. I don't think we probably wouldn't get along with her if we actually met her, or she wouldn't be interested in us. But I think there's a real depth to Juliet and a real strength to her that I think people will respond to.
I know we talked quite a bit about the bits of email and text messages, but you'll like this comment from Laura. She said she liked the format of Shot in the Dark with the extra bits of email and text messages, so sometimes the reader knew a little more than the detectives, or got a bit more of Juliet and Gabe's life.
Yes, yeah, that's my hope for it, and I think, yeah, occasionally you like a couple of my friends have gone back and read Shot in the Dark now that Close to the Edge has come out, and they said like reading it a second time you can see little clues that you'd kind of missed along the way, and that's my kind of like hope that people could sort of be figuring it out with Gabe and Juliet, and occasionally you've seen a bit more than Gabe and Juliet, so it kind of helps you make those leaps.
I think there were moments when I sort of thought I knew what was going on and kind of went back and checked things.
That's kind of, and that's what I do. I go and check I'm actually making sense. But yeah, that's what I want. I don't know about you, but I feel very frustrated with crime novels where in the last 30 pages suddenly someone random turns up who's done it, or there's like this twist that like you couldn't have seen coming and you couldn't have figured it out. Whereas I actually kind of want everything to be on the page. So there are, like with both of them, I think there's the capability to figure it out before it happens. And I hope I've thrown in enough red herrings and nonsense in so that it kind of distracts people. But like you say, if you read back, you could be like, oh yeah, okay, I've spotted them there, and kind of, yeah, figure it out.
I think that's one of those old crime writing rules, isn't it, about playing fair to the reader?
Yes, yeah. And I think some writers don't and and get away with it, and it's still an enjoyable story. But I think for me, I really like sort of the reader almost being like a fair partner in the story. So I want you to feel excited because you kind of have this wealth of knowledge that you're like, oh, how's this going to turn out? And then when it turns out that way, you can go, oh yeah, okay, I get this now, and kind of, yeah.
So you talk about the series and character arcs and things, and you write in book 3. How many books are you planning to write?
Well, I'm contracted for 3. So that's my kind of, I'll write book 3. We would love to do 5. That would be the dream. But like I'm currently contracted for 3.
And do you think when you've finished with like Gabe and Juliet, would that be the end of those characters and that? Would you write a spin-off with any of the other characters, or would you go for something completely fresh?
I can see that maybe I would. I'm not going to say who, because then you'll know that like they don't die at any point, or but there are a couple of the characters in there that I have a lot of fun writing and that I could see myself potentially writing spin-offs for, but I don't have any specific ideas in my head at the moment. I'm actually working on a couple of other crime ideas at the moment, and they would be sort of standalones. So yeah, I'm sort of have lots of ideas, and we'll sort of see who bites, really.
Sarah's asked you one of our group's favourite questions, which is, have you ever acted out a scene as you've written?
No.
She said in private or in public.
No. Most of them I wouldn't want to. No, I haven't, but I see it like a film in my head. So I kind of I see it very, very clearly, the action in my head. And I think that's sometimes why I struggle a little bit to begin with, to describe scenes and describe people because I can just see it. So I'm like, why do I have to tell you that their hair's brown or that they're in a room, because it's so clear to me. And then I have to remember to go back and be like, right, okay, let me actually tell the reader what's going on as well. So no, I haven't acted any out.
You wouldn't have been in. We've had some glorious answers to that question in the past.
Have you?
Oh,
I imagine some people have, and yeah, like I think sometimes things are quite complicated physically, and you do have to like. There's like a fight at the end of Shot in the Dark, where I had to think really carefully about where like everyone's limbs would be, and kind of like there's sort of a weapon involved, and I was like, okay, but I need that to be like far enough away, and so yeah, you do have to think a bit about the physicality of it. Yeah.
We had an author who did act out a fight scene in public.
Nice.
We've had people who tied people up to see about what that would look like. My favourite one is the author who read that like things didn't decompose in concrete, so they buried like a pig's shoulder or a lamb's shoulder, I can't remember what animal it was, in like concrete in their garden and left it for a year, and then they dug it up.
Oh wow, that yeah, I can't say I've done anything like that. I do, yeah. My uncle's amazing for research, so I'm quite squeamish, so I wouldn't want to do anything like that. But that I love the fight in public thing. I love that some of the things that I find myself searching for on Google or saying to people, I sort of think, oh, I really hope that you're like whoever looks at this would know that I'm a crime writer, not just someone strange looking at all these things. But yeah,
it's totally fine. I think there are certain jobs and things where your research history just has to be excused.
Yes, yeah. I definitely think that's true.
Yeah, like sometimes you do just Google weird stuff. It's okay. We also have had other authors who've just done clever things. Like there's an author who writes books and has like a little Lego thing set up.
Yeah, I've seen these before where they've like built the room and like kind of moved the figure. That's very cool.
Which I think is a really clever way of doing it.
I'm not creative enough to do that. So I'm quite glad that I see it. I can see it so vividly in my head, because it means I don't sort of have to have these visual aids and stuff, because I don't think I'd be nearly as good at it as other people are.
I think I always find that really fascinating. I don't picture anything in my head when I read.
Really?
Yeah, there's a weird bunch of us that don't.
It's so, I do find it so interesting, because like you obviously, the way you think, you assume is the way everyone thinks, and particularly reading. And it's very funny. Like my dad is quite obsessed with who'd be cast as different people. And he sort of tells me his suggestions, and I think, oh my gosh, that's nothing like who's in my head. But like he's sort of like imagined who he thinks from the description I've given. But I do find it fascinating, people who like just read the words, and because I see every story I read, I see sort of in Technicolor in my brain. So yeah, very interesting.
Our favourite question to do with TV series is if it was made into a Netflix or a film.
Yes, please.
What character would you play?
Would I play? Oh, gosh, I think I'd have to play someone very minor, because I'd be terrible.
Maybe a photographer, maybe.
Yeah. Or like, I'd have to be like, there's a receptionist in the first book. I could just be that person. No, I love it's sort of a very 90s film thing, isn't it, where the author made a cameo, but I would be very happy not to do that.
I think when they do give you like a Netflix contract, part of it is that you can go and watch it being made and stuff.
I think it'd be so interesting. I know it's not the same, but the audiobooks, I think I really enjoy, because even though she's using exactly the same words, it's putting her spin on them. and sort of Yasmin's voice that she does, and she does a few accents for people that I was like, I didn't know they had an accent, and it's kind of cool to sort of see someone else's interpretation. I think that must be amazing to sort of see like how a director and how like a different cast would bring your story to life in a different way. It'd be very cool.
Sarah suggested you could be a crime scene tech.
Although I wouldn't want anything. I'm just such a wimp. I wouldn't want. I wouldn't want to be near anything too gory, even if it was fake. You'd have me in the corner going.
Really? Oh no.
I'm honestly such a massive wimp. My book 3 has to do with arson in it, and my uncle was telling me about sort of the different things that happen to like body parts and stuff when someone gets burnt. And I read it just before lunch, and I was like, this is the worst time I could possibly have read this. It was awful. And I was cross at him. I was like, why did you do this to me? But yeah, I'm such a wimp. I like when I want to read a crime book, I often have to get my husband to read them before me to check that they're okay, because yeah, I'm such a massive wimp.
I'm always fascinated by that because I'm like a science teacher as my day job, and I'm totally unsqueamish. Like I'll sit and watch like documentaries about surgery and then eat a packet of crisps while I'm doing it. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not bothered at all. And then we do stuff like we were dissecting stuff with the kids this week, and like some of them are just like it's some like meat from the shops. Do you know what I mean? And then they're like, no, it's too gross.
See, I'm one of those that's even like meat from the shops. I'm cutting it up like this is so good. But no, it's one of the things I'm so grateful for to my uncle is that like, because like see like crimes happen in the books, and I would find it so difficult to research it, like genuinely on a sort of like a mental health kind of way. Like I'd find it quite really difficult. So it's really helpful to me to just say like, right, this is the kind of situation I want. What things do I need to know, and what do I need to put in? And he gives me like the barest bones, and I'm like, that's perfect. That's all I need to know. Because actually, so much of research is that you learn more, like loads and loads. But I just, yeah, I think as a person, I just wouldn't be able to cope with that. Yeah.
I won't read your Donna's comment and
no.
about acid and things that have been in the water.
Oh gosh.
Donna did forensics at uni, so
did she?
She's probably unsqueamish.
Yes, well done you. And I'm honestly, I've got a friend who used to be a pathologist, and I think, my gosh, you have a very different makeup to me, and I'm so glad there's people like you in the world.
I remember when I was at university, we had a microbiology lecturer who we had lectures at lunchtime, and his ambition, he said this at the start, was like to make you go ugh at least once.
Yeah,
so I always have photos, and they'd get progressively worse.
Oh, no.
As the lecture went on, and there were like moments where you were like, yeah.
This is gross. I think I would be quite early on.
Sarah says she doesn't even cut the meat. Her hubby does it, and she does the vegetables.
Well done, Sarah. Yeah, see, my husband probably would do it for me, but I'd be brave and wear a glove and yeah.
That's so funny. I can't believe. Yeah. Would you not have been tempted more into cozy crime then, because you can avoid the gore? Or
well, so cozy crime is something I have written and might go forward with. I think with both Shot in the Dark and Close to the Edge, I don't know if you'd agree, but I would say that they're incredibly low gore. Like there's a scene in Close to the Edge about the fingers, and that I found that upsetting to write. I didn't like writing that, but I knew it was necessary, and I think that's probably the goriest thing I've written, and maybe when the body is found at the start of Shot in the Dark. But I think a part of me wanted to write like sort of a police procedural, but not be incredibly graphic and sort of in that way, because actually, like, I love reading crime, but sometimes I do find it a bit prohibitive that there's such detail, and sometimes I sort of think, do I need to know this? Do I need to know all of this? So actually, I wanted to write sort of police procedural that could be light in that way, and sort of invite people in who are a bit like me and a bit of a wimp. So
Laura, yeah, but then that's it. There's all sorts of people in the world, and it's good to have books that you would want to read. Laura said she remembers having to be the one who dissected the rat in A-level biology, and her partner went on to study medicine.
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely. I think one thing I'd say though, so I read the new Chris Whitaker recently, and I loved We Begin at the End, but I would say that both of those are incredibly light on gore as well. Like, there's serious situations, but it's not sort of really graphic, and I think that's the kind of sort of writing that appeals to me, that you can have those really sort of serious incidents, but there isn't kind of the level of, I guess it's like shock factor, isn't it, with gore and stuff like that, that actually
what you find shocking as well, isn't it? Because if you think about people, I think probably the scariest writer that I've ever read is Shirley Jackson.
Okay.
And if you think about The Haunting of Hill House, that absolutely terrified me. I could only read it in the day. What it was like. And then I had to like stack books on top of it, which is a thing I used to do as a kid because I thought the characters could escape. And I was that scared that I went back to like my childhood thing of doing it, reading the book. And there is literally nothing. You see nothing supernatural, really. It's all just hinted at. There's like no gore. There's no jumping out bits. Do you know what I mean? It's just constant ratcheting up of attention, of suggestion and things like that. And it's like, how can it be so scary and not do?
That's very true. And I'm really struggling to remember the name of it now, but I definitely read a book that, like you say, just became more and more intense to the point where I was like, I just need to finish this now.
With like Haunting of Hill House, like I can't stop.
Yes, you feel compelled because you just need to know what horrible thing's going to happen at the end, and then like move on with your life. But yeah, no, I think it's, like you say, it's different things that people find scary. So for me, gore is definitely one of the things I really struggle with. But with mine, I just sort of wanted to keep that light and kind of focus on other things.
But then that works really well in the audio books. I'm really curious because you're sort of talking about the audio, about how you managed to get across those like other aspects, like the text messages and things like that. I'm wondering if, like, for once, like as you were reading the audio, you'd maybe miss out a little bit because you don't get that format.
So I haven't listened to the whole books. I find it quite difficult to sort of listen to audiobooks, but I've listened to big chunks of it. And she does it brilliantly. I think people rave about the audiobooks because she's so good at them. And I think she sort of reads it as it is on the page. So, and I think it's funny, isn't it? Because I tried to read an audiobook that was similar to this, but I don't think they had the, like, you know, when it's an email, it says who's it sent and who it's from and blah, blah, blah. And I don't think it had those things. So it was really confusing because you just suddenly had like this no context email, but on the page it made sense. Whereas actually I think what Yasmin does is she literally reads what's on the page. So it gives it that kind of framework that works better. But yeah, people love the audiobooks, and I like the bits I've read are amazing. Like, I think Yasmin does an amazing job. And she does all the accents, which is really cool.
It's good. It gives it more of a kind of a context for you understanding the area and things as well. If you're not from there, hearing like an accent of the place can kind of help root you in it.
Yeah, but she's like so seriously good at it because she does like Gabe, which is kind of say normal, but like quite like sort of London, North London-y. And then Juliet's like a little bit posh. But then she does like a slightly Cornish for Ollie, and does like a Nigerian accent as well. So like she's got such a range of accents she can do. Like the bits, I've listened to lots and lots of bits of the accents, and I'm like, this is just amazing, the sort of breadth that she can do.
Donna said it took Chris 4 years to write All the Colours of the Dark.
Yeah, which I'm not surprised by because it's a freaking brick. Like it is. It was. I was reading it thinking this is amazing, but this is. It's in hardback, and I was like at points I was like my arms are hurting. So I'm really not surprised. Like that I love his writing. I think it's so beautiful. Like such an aspiration to write anything that beautiful. But yeah, it's really, I would recommend that book, but maybe wait till it's out on paperback.
I do like to ask people what they've read recently and enjoyed as recommendations. So apart from Christmas, okay, have you got any others?
Yeah, no, I really love those. I read is it called When Things Went Dark or When Things Go Dark? It's by B. Fitzgerald. But that I think it's like literally just come out. I managed to get to wangle an early copy. But that was brilliant. It's a sort of it's set on, it's like a reality TV show. It's got these 6 celebrities and you'll hate all of them. And one of them dies and you'll hope it's all of them. And one of them murders them and you'll hope it's all of them. Because I loved how it's really intriguing reading a novel where I was like, I'm not rooting for any of you. I hope you all just topple off a cliff. You all deserve this. But that was, really brilliant. And one I'm really, really looking forward to reading is Richard Osman's We Solve Murders, the new one. Because I loved the Thursday Murder Club novels. And I'm just, really looking forward to it. And that's set in the New Forest as well. So it's kind of got that nice link.
Good choices. I like the Thursday Murder Club series.
Yes, I feel like they got stronger and stronger as they went on, and like the 4th one just blew me away. So I'm really excited to try this new series and kind of see him sort of flexing his muscles in a slightly different direction.
I think cozy crime in general is like I'm quite a fan.
I'm quite a fan because of the wimpishness. So I know I can read it, but I think there's like in cozy crime, there's often that level of like character sort of development, isn't there? And a bit more fun, which I think is a weird thing to put together with crime, but definitely works. So one that Canello published are the Dinner Lady Detectives by Hannah Henny. And they're brilliant, like just really fun. Like I feel like they mention Quality Street a lot, which I really appreciate.
It's Marjorie and Clementine, isn't it, in the series?
Yeah.
I love them so much. I'm addicted.
Yes, yeah.
They're We've had Anna on in the group.
Oh, have you? Oh, she's so lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, she's brilliant. She can't write them fast enough, though.
I know.
For readers, it's like you with book 3.
I know. Well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I was like signing book 2 for someone, and they were like, "Oh, I've actually already read it on my Kindle. When's book 3 coming out?" And I was like, "Seriously, this is publication day. Calm yourself." But no, I'm. It's lovely having people that are keen like that. It blows my mind a bit. Like that's a dream coming true. That like amazing. And it just spurs you on to be like, I really want to write more. I want to like have this story with you. It's exciting.
I'm just going to put out there that as readers, if we really attach ourselves to an author and we love it, we are going to hassle you until you write a new one.
That's fine. I love the hassling. That's really lovely.
I'm thoroughly there with several authors. I'm sure I'm going to get blocked from where's the next book.
I do. So I often post like little pictures of what I'm up to with writing, like Post-it notes and stuff. And I'd say that I get like a solid few people that are like, "Oh, so is it almost done?" And I'm like, publishing is long. So even if I was done, it's not there for you. But
Donna says she likes that someone's unafraid to say they like Richard Osman.
Oh yeah. So it's a weird thing, isn't it? Like I feel like there's a whole people bash him a bit, but I think he's great. And I love is it House of Games? I think he's really fun. I think he's a nice guy. I've not met him, but I think he seems like a nice guy.
He's been at the Harrogate Festival a few times, but I don't know that I've spoken to him there. I've just seen him around.
I've not been to Harrogate. But yeah, just like I listened to his How to Fail podcast. And I thought that was amazing. Like sort of I love the How to Fail podcast anyway, but I thought that his one was really like insightful and sort of lovely. And he talked a lot about, in terms of writing for screen, how he faced like loads and loads of rejection there, and it kind of set him up really well for writing fiction and kind of going in that direction. So yeah.
Cool. Sarah said it's her standard question when the next book is coming out. What do you tell people who are waiting? Can you give any teasers for book 3 for people who are watching and being like, what's book 3 going to be about?
Carries on from book 2. We learn a lot more about Gabe, which is really cool. And there's a fire. I feel like that's probably the most I can tell you.
There is a bit of a clue at the back of book 2, isn't there?
Yeah.
That kind of makes you think about where book 3 is going to go.
Yes, yeah, and that's not a red herring. That is where it will go. So yeah, it's been quite really fun to write sort of a storyline that delves into Gabe's past, and
because I think Gabe you hint at an interesting past in the story.
Yes,
so that's going to be interesting to see.
Yes, and that's part of what I like writing a series, is that I didn't have to reveal everything in book 1 or even in book 2. You've got kind of that space to play and kind of let people get to know people slowly and kind of reveal things in a bit more of a gradual and sort of natural way. So yeah.
Donna said, what's been your biggest pinch me moment of your author career?
All of them. I think I was writing for such a long time before anything really happened, and then I got my agent in the April, and then got a publishing deal in the next December. So we worked on the story together, and then it went out, and then it was only within a couple of months that it got picked up by Canelo. So it all happened really quickly. So at that point, it felt like, I think still it feels like a bit surreal. And there's part of me that's like, is everyone playing like a really long con on me? Is this all smoke and mirrors and kind of I think I had a real pinch me moment at the signings recently that I've done for Close to the Edge, because people came that I didn't know. And whereas all the signings for Shot in the Dark, it was generally like friends and family that came, which was really lovely. But with Close to the Edge, it's obviously reached more than my friends and family, which is lovely. And sort of, so it's been a bit of a you're interested in my writing, you don't know me, you don't know, you're just interested in the book purely because you're interested in the book, which is just amazing to me. So yes, it constantly baffled by what's going on.
My favourite old author chat question, and I stopped asking it just because a lot of the authors come back and I can't repeat my questions, is, would you make a graphic novel version of your book?
Ooh, that would be really cool. Yeah, I personally wouldn't, because the drawings, you wouldn't be able to distinguish anything of what is going on. I initially, when we were doing covers for both the books, I would send my little stick drawings of what I think should happen, which thankfully my publishers completely ignore, but are terrible. So no, I would, I think, to be honest, I'm quite I'm not very precious about my books. So I read somewhere that Leanne Moriarty, who wrote The Husband's Secret and Apples Never Fall and whatnot, she's had a few things adapted for screen, and she literally passes it over and says I'm done with it. I've written my story, you do what you want with it. And I think sort of I've not that I've had anyone wanting to make it into a film. Anyone wants to, you can. But like anyone that wanted to do anything like that, I think I'd say like, yeah, that's cool. You go for it. I'm not going to have input because I've kind of done my bit and I want to tell the next story. I don't want to keep telling that story. So yeah, I think I would, love it to be sort of graphic novel form. That would be really cool.
Charlene Harris, who wrote the True Blood series, she says that she was like, she didn't know enough about it and she was just happy to let them go.
Yeah.
And it's so different from the book series, like the TV one. I mean, they're both great, but
yeah. Well, I think
the kids got older and watched it and were like, whoa, this is
different.
This is quite sexy. And she was like, it put you through college. Like, shut up.
I think so. Yeah, 9 Perfect Strangers. I think that's what it's called. It is a Leanne Moriarty one, and I read the book and went into the TV series thinking, oh, I'm going to know exactly what happens. And then it was really quite different, and I was like, but there's some things that happen in books that just wouldn't quite work in a TV series. Like if Close to the Edge and Shots of the Dark were made into TV series, it wouldn't work to have a load of emails on the screen and stuff like that. That I feel like we could incorporate the mixed media in different ways, but the story would have to change in certain ways. So yeah, I think it's worth sort of like, it's a different creative field, isn't it? That I don't know anything about. So
I think it's okay if you can understand the changes that were made. You know, if you watch and you're like, yeah, that's faithful enough, and I can kind of see why they've changed the things they've changed.
Yes, yeah. When it's like, I feel like there was the Jack Reacher, wasn't there, where it was Tom Cruise, and everyone was like, "What? How have you got this tiny man to play a notoriously gigantic man?" And I feel like there's some decisions like that where it's like you've made that decision because you wanted someone involved or something specific. But yeah, I know what you mean. When you can see why the change has been made, you're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. We've got a few minutes left.
Yeah.
We've whizzed through the chat. Remind people if they're watching what they're going to go away and buy if they haven't already.
Yeah.
We do seem to have acquired some fans.
Oh, thank you. That's really kind. So it's Shot in the Dark first, which is traditionally read the first one first, but not what Kaz has gone for.
No, sorry.
And then Close to the Edge as well. Medina Bookshop on the Isle of Wight, which you can search for online. They've actually got signed copies, which you can order online, which I think is the only place where you can get signed copies. But they're available wherever you buy books. And I feel you read the second one without reading the first one. That was okay, wasn't it? So
it utterly worked. I mean, I knew I'd kind of missed stuff, if you know what I mean. And I was like, I probably should have read. Canelo sent me this one.
Okay, nice.
I was like, yeah, I picked that one up, and then I was like, probably should have read the first one first. But
I think I talked about it a lot with my editor about how you need them to be like standalone. But I talked a lot about how but I do want to build things as well. So I think it's like you say, you'll be aware that there's maybe some things that you don't quite get the nuance of, but hopefully you get enough that you can kind of carry on. But like to get the full sort of experience, you'd maybe want to read the first one as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's really shocking for me to do that actually, because I'm normally a reading order kind of girl.
I get quite stressed if I don't.
If you do stuff like this, though, sometimes you just have to read the most recent book, so you have to get over it a bit.
I had a bit of a brain blip as well when I picked up I think they're Bernard Cornwell for my husband, and I gave him this book and he was reading it and he was thinking, gosh, there's so much like that's not being explained to me, and that's a bit weird, like quite a weird decision for a first book. And then he realized that I'd given him like the 13th in the series or something. It was only when he got to the end, and then he was like, he went back and read the first one, and there was all this peril around, was someone going to die? And he was like, well, I know they're not, because they're in book 13. And I was like, oh dear, I don't quite know how I did that, but there you go.
These things happen. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, and thank you to everyone that I can't see for listening in and like all your questions. And yeah, it's been really lovely to chat.